G'day mates. The second book I have for us this week is this, and it's called Colorful Australia, the Outback. And this is a book by Rupert Matthews. It's a photography book. There's photographs inside. And so it's a non-fiction book. It's called Colorful Australia is the series. And I'm not going to read each of the pages, but I'm going to show you many of them. The Outback, if you've heard of that before, or not heard of it before, is a vast, and I mean vast, very, very big area of Oceania, specifically in Australia, that's in the center of the continent. Around the outside, the edges of the continent, are the bigger cities and access to water. The center of the continent, the Outback, is an area that's just very unusual in its terrain, which means the land. Some places are very dry like a desert. Other places have beautiful rock and stone formations. And when people cross the Outback, they have to be very ready for long drives where they don't see anyone or anything else that are created by people. Towns are very far apart. You have to make certain you have enough gas, even some extra in your vehicle. You definitely don't want to run out of water or food, and you need covering because of the temperature changes. And so I thought it would be interesting to just see what some parts of the Outback look like. So the Australia map is here, the Outback is in the center, and then typically around the edges near the water are the bigger cities and larger communities. Now look at that. I mean, it almost feels kind of like a moonscape. You know, there's landscapes, waterscapes, but it looks like a moonscape, such an unusual place. Sand is even kind of reddish. There are roads, so people can go on roads. Then beautiful rock formations and small lakes. And then there's places here where there's green. Some trees, some water, a beautiful reflection of that range in the back called Hammersley Range. And there's a windswept tree, but a beautiful kind of reddish rock formation in the back. Nope. Careful. Careful when you're moving around there. Right there in that small pond. You see it, right? Crocodile or alligator, what does this say? This tells me it's a crocodile. Ooh, it's called a saltwater crocodile. Urgh. So you do not go near the water unless you know exactly what kind of water that is. And here is that is a water buffalo. Here's a wild pig in there. There's a brush fire. Australia had terribly large brush fires this year, destroyed millions and millions of acres of land. You might have heard about that on the news. Here's two more pictures. There's lots of green here, beautiful reflection in the water, bushes and green and tall cliffs. Here's a boat that people can take to go out onto one of the rivers, run by this man. You can sit in the boat safely and be able to see different aspects of the Outback. Beautiful river, and here's a cave. There's even a walkway through the cave. Here's one of the small towns that you pass along the way. There's no big cities in the middle of the country. Just small communities connected by long roads. Oh, there's a pyramid building. And there are places where you can swim where there's water. There's no crocodiles in there. It's very protected. Palm trees. So it's very different. There's palm trees and water, and then deserts and rock formations. Such an unusual place. You will pass lots of truckers who crisscross, go across the continent in the middle through the Outback, and then they go to the communities along the edge, along the water's edge. Big trucks. Wow, this truck is three trucks connected together. Whoa, that's a lot. Oh, it's called a road train. I've never seen that in the United States, a road train. I've seen two. That's the most I've ever seen connected. Camels, kangaroos, or roos for short, as they call them there. It's a beautiful formation. Trees and water. More small towns. Places where you can go and sleep and get food and get water, but you want to be sure while you're traveling in between these communities that you have enough supplies so you don't get stuck or run out of something. There's a town right in the middle of all that beautiful land around it. And there's some of the Aboriginal first people, the kind of people who made that art, that dot art that was in the book the other day, the singing snake. More communities. Here's some more land. A beautiful, beautiful part of the continent, the Outback. There's a restaurant chain around the world called the Outback Steakhouse, managed and run with the idea of having Australian-type food. So you might have heard the word Outback. But this is the real Outback, the real place in Australia. Thank you, mates.